Hello, and welcome to another broadcast of Comics Let's Talk. I'm your host, Kevin Given, and I want to start by saying that this is my last broadcast from the St. Louis area as I'm returning to the Sunshine State of Florida. So my background posters will probably change. Thor no longer throwing his hammer at me, and me no longer covering up the Batman. Now, I'm going to give you, DC and Marvel fans, a chance to vote on your favorite team. All you have to do is go to my Comics Let's Talk Facebook page and like it. Then subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the little red button right below this image. Subscribe to my channel and keep watching the shows. As in a few weeks, I will be doing my first live broadcast, and that's when you can vote. I'm going to be doing Comic Book Wars at least once a month. Keep watching my show and following my Facebook page for details. The next Comic Book Wars will be X-Men versus the Teen Titans. Get your opinion and votes on those as well. Now don't vote today in the comments section. I want you to keep watching the show, subscribe to this YouTube channel, Comics Let's Talk, Kevin Given. Go to Facebook and like the Comics Let's Talk page on Facebook, and you will be given information on my first live broadcast. So keep tuning in, subscribe to my channel, like the Facebook page. Comics Let's Talk. Today, I'll be giving my assessment of the two teams, their history, and their strengths and their weaknesses. The Justice League came first. Akira Kurosawa's formula for the Magnificent Seven came to comic book format as the original founding members of the Justice League, including Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, Flash, and Green Lantern, all got together and decided to fight crime. The group debuted in the Brave and Bold comic book number 28, March of 1960. They would appear in two other issues of Brave and Bold before getting their own book. Going to look at Wikipedia as well as the DC and Marvel comic databases today to discuss the origins of both teams. From Wikipedia, the Justice League in the 1960s. The team operated from a secret cave outside of the small town of Happy Harbor, Rhode Island. Strange place to start a superhero team. A teenager named Snapper Carr tagged along on their missions, becoming both the team's mascot and official member. Snapper, noted for speaking in beatnik dialect and snapping his fingers, "Yo, team!" helped the group defeat the giant space starfish Starro the Conqueror in the team's first appearance, Brave and Bold number 28. The supervillain Dr. Light first battled the team in issue number 12 in June of 1962. Justice League of America number 21 and number 22 saw the first team-up of the Justice League and the Justice Society of America, as well as the first use of the term crisis in reference to a crossover between the characters. The following year's team-up with Justice Society introduced the threat of the Crime Syndicate of America of Earth 3. The character Metamorpho was offered membership in the Justice League but declined. Following the departures of Gardner Fox and Mike Sekowsky, writer Denny O'Neil and artist Dick Dillon became the new creative team. Dillon would draw the title from issue number 64 in August 1968, all the way through issue number 183, October of 1980. O'Neil reshaped the Justice League's membership by removing Wonder Woman in issue number 69 and the Martian Manhunter in issue number 71. Following the JLA-JSA team-up, in issues number 73 through 74, and the death of her husband, the Black Canary decided to move to Earth 1 to make a fresh start. There she joined the Justice League. The following issues saw the character develop the superpower known as her Canary Cry. In issue number 77, December of 1969, Snapper Carr is tricked into betraying the cave headquarters' secret location to the Joker, resulting in his resignation from the team. Now let's look at the Avengers in the 1960s. Though not quite a Magnificent Seven originally, with only 6 members, including Hulk, Thor, Ant-Man, Wasp, Iron Man, and Voyager, they would receive Magnificent Seven status by issue number 4, when Captain America was revived and joined the team. However, that roster would go down to number 6 again with the departure of the Hulk, Avengers #1 would come out in September of 1963, and clearly Marvel had to play catch-up with DC, as Justice League was up to 22 issues by that time. So in this case, it is a clear indication of Marvel being inspired by DC. But the two would often imitate each other, as one would come up with a water-breathing hero and the other would follow suit, Submariner to the Aquaman. One would come with a character in an iron suit, and the other would follow, Pharaoh Lad and Iron Man. And you get the idea. From Wikipedia again, when the Asgardian Loki seeks revenge against his brother Thor, his machinations unwittingly led to teenager Rick Jones, who collected Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Iron Man to help Thor and the Hulk, whom Loki used as a pawn. After the group vanquished Loki, Ant-Man stated that the five worked well together and suggested they form a team. The Wasp named the team the Avengers, and it was settled. The roster changed almost immediately. At the beginning of the second issue, Ant-Man became Giant Man. At the end of the issue, the Hulk left once he realized how much the others feared his unstable personality. Captain America soon joined the team in issue #4, and he was given founding member status in the Hulk's place. The Avengers went on to fight such foes as Baron Zemo, who formed the Masters of Evil, Kang the Conqueror, Wonder Man, and Count Nefaria. The next milestone came when every member but Captain America resigned. They were replaced by 3 former villains, Hawkeye, the Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver. Giant Man, now calling himself Goliath, and the Wasp rejoined. Hercules became part of the team when the Black Knight and the Black Widow abetted the Avengers, but did not become full members until years later. Spider-Man was offered membership, but did not join the group. He would later on down the road, but during the 1960s, Spider-Man was not an Avenger. The Black Panther joined after rescuing the team from the Grim Reaper and Claw. The X-Men #45 in June of 1968 featured a crossover with the Avengers, #53. This was followed by the introduction of the android, the Vision. Hank Pym assumed the new identity of Yellow Jacket in issue #59. Then he married the Wasp in the following month. The Avengers headquarters was in New York City in a building called Avengers Mansion, courtesy of Tony Stark, which of course is Iron Man's real identity. The mansion was serviced by Edwin Jarvis, the Avengers' faithful butler. And in the comics, he's not just a computerized voice like in the movies, but he is an actual human being, kind of like Alfred to the Batman. The mansion was furnished with state-of-the-art technology and defense systems, and included the Avengers' primary mode of transport, the 5-engine Quinjet. The prequel comic, Avengers #1.5, from December of 1999 by writer Roger Stern and artist Bruce Timm, told a retro-style story taking place between issues #1 and #2, detailing the Ant-Man's decision to transform himself into Giant Man. By the time the 60s had ended, the Justice League gave us 77 issues to the Avengers 71. So, the Marvel team had come within striking distance of DC's. They started 22 issues behind and came within 6 issues to catching up to DC's team. So whose title was better in the 1960s? Well, of course, that's a matter of opinion. For me, at least, it was the Avengers. Both titles had silly stories and events. The Hulk dressing up as a clown and hanging out in a circus, hiding out from the Marvel team. The character of Snapper Carr was ridiculous. I guess you could say he was a corny version of Rick Jones. Now let's take a look at both titles' premiere. The Avengers premiered in their own issue, while DC premiered the Justice League in The Brave and the Bold #28. In The Brave and the Bold #28, Aquaman is told by Peter the Pufferfish. Yes, there's a character in the DC universe called Peter the Pufferfish. So it's kind of silly right off the bat. He's told about an alien attack on Earth. He sees Starro land in the sea and transform 3 ordinary starfish into giant-sized menaces. Aquaman realizes he can't do this alone and calls the rest of the League, who were busy and had to drop everything to answer the call. Wonder Woman as Diana Prince was on a date with Steve Trevor. Superman and Batman were way too busy with their own fights to even answer. I suspect this was done to showcase the company's lesser title heroes, giving them a chance to shine. Green Lantern as Hal Jordan was test piloting a new plane but he sets it to autopilot so he could answer the call. The Flash had just finished with dealing with a tornado. The only one who got away easy was Martian Manhunter. His boss told him to take some much-needed time off. Of course, his time off isn't as relaxing as the rest of ours because he had to deal with this little menace here. As soon as they get together, they have to split up, in true Gardner Fox fashion. One of Gardner's tropes is that he usually split the team up to take on different but related menaces and then team up at the end of the story to finish off the ultimate menace in the pages of that magazine. Now, it's not a terrible issue, but it really doesn't hold up that well today. The nice thing was to see each character in their own space and have to resolve other problems before they answer the call. We don't see as much of that in today's comic books, and that's a nice touch. Today's comics tend to jump right into the action. We barely see much of their secrets and secret life in these team-up issues. And of course, to see as many of DC's iconic characters in one issue for the first time is always fun. But Starro was kind of a silly character with little to no explanation as to why he's doing what he's doing. It's a type of villain who is simply bent on taking over the world and not much else. See if I can do that again. And that's my little evil villain laugh. Now let's come to Avengers #1. The mighty and unstoppable team of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby have done it again. Marvel saw the success DC had with its superhero team and followed suit. First, they did the Fantastic Four in the same year as the Justice League, which were original characters to their own issue. But when DC launched its title, teaming up characters who had their own individual titles into one giant story and saw great success with it, Marvel just had to follow suit. They took their own characters with ongoing titles and made them into the Avengers. The only character that didn't have an ongoing title at the time was the Hulk, because his title had been canceled with issue #6. In the first issue, we have Thor's brother Loki, who was a prisoner on Asgard and not allowed to leave. However, he can use his telepathic powers to project holograms. He sees Dr. Donald Blake and contemplates defeating his brother while he's in the weakened human state, but decides there would be no challenge to doing that. So he comes up with the idea of tricking the Hulk with a hologram of dynamite being set on railroad tracks. And when the Hulk goes to destroy the dynamite, he accidentally destroys the tracks, though he does hold them up long enough for the train to pass by safely. The Teen Brigade sees a news article on the story and tries to contact the Fantastic Four for help. Loki interferes with the radio signal and the FF don't hear it. However, Ant-Man and Wasp do hear it, and they leap into action. Donald Blake thinks the Hulk is attacking and turns into Thor to confront him. From the Marvel database, back in Asgard, Thor asks permission from Odin to meet Loki on the Isle of Silence to question him. Odin accepts but warns that he cannot interfere between the two brothers' quarrel. As Thor sets out across the Sea of Mist, he is attacked by Loki's traps. First, he narrowly escapes tangled roots that threaten to drag him down into the depths. Next, a volcano erupts, releasing volcanic gas globules capable of sapping the strength of any god. Thor manages to evade these by diving into the sea. On the island, Loki spots Thor's empty boat and wonders with disbelief if Thor has already been defeated. Suddenly, a giant waterspout appears in front of him as Thor emerges from the sea to face him. He throws his hammer at Loki, only to have it deflected by a hastily made ice shield. Loki calls upon a rock troll, which begins to drag Thor beneath the ground. At the last moment, Thor uses his hammer to summon lightning, which dazzles the troll, causing it to relinquish his hold. Thor angrily swings his hammer at Loki, who has created multiple metal images of himself to confuse him. Thor counters this by spinning his hammer fast enough to blow all the figures away, revealing the true Loki. Soaking up the magnetic flow from the earth with his hammer, he captures Loki via magnetic attraction and takes him back to Earth to clear the Hulk's name. On Earth, Iron Man, Ant-Man, and the Wasp continue to pursue the Hulk to an auto factory in Detroit. Thor appears with Loki to clear Hulk's name. Suddenly, Loki makes himself radioactive, forcing the heroes to retreat. Luckily, Loki stands over a trapdoor and Ant-Man's ants trigger a switch, dropping him into a lead-lined tank. Upon celebrating their victory, Ant-Man and the Wasp point out how well they could work as a team and that they should work together in the future. The Wasp suggests they should call themselves the Avengers, and everybody agrees. And there came a day unlike any other when Earth's mightiest heroes found themselves united against a common threat. On that day, the Avengers were born, to fight the foes no single superhero could withstand. So here we have a relatable villain in Loki, the god of mischief. If he can't have any fun, no one else will either. He's simply bored with imprisonment and wants to start trouble like a spoiled brat. We get the sibling rivalry between Thor and Loki right away. We don't know that much about Starro. He's simply another in a long line of villains bent on taking over the Earth. So for my money, the Avengers debut was better written and the character's motivation better fleshed out. Even if they both have like that 60s kind of comic book dialogue, which is cheesy and corny, the Avengers story flows a little bit better. And once again, it's better fleshed out. Now it's interesting to note how their comic book debuts mirror their cinematic debuts, and we'll talk about that in a later broadcast when we come up to the modern day Justice League and Thor. But today we're going to look at the 1960s and 70s. In the movie and in the comic book, we get the sibling rivalry between Thor and Loki, with an awesome performance by Tom Hiddleston in the first Avengers movie. Now with Steppenwolf in the Justice League movie, he's simply there to be the villain. He doesn't relate in any way to any other character on screen, and unless you read the comics, you will have no idea who Steppenwolf is. Steppenwolf is actually quite an interesting character, but it isn't fleshed out that well in the Justice League movie. Like I say, he's there to be the type of villain, and didn't quite work out that well. The average filmgoer won't be able to connect with Steppenwolf and his plight as well as Loki's. Now, I gave Justice League a good review because overall, I liked it, but it still can't compete with the first Avengers movie, which is epic in scope. The first Justice League movie is fun, good action, nice set pieces, and a little too heavy on the CGI, but all comic book movies are. Is it really any worse than Thor Ragnarok, or even Wonder Woman, which got such critical acclaim? I personally don't think so, but that's a different story for a different show. I'm going to discuss that in a column for on the site and also in a later broadcast. But right now, we're going to stick with the program here. So the first Justice League movie cannot compete with the Avengers first movie, and the Justice League comic book first appearance really can't compete with the first Avengers appearance. Now it's interesting to note that the Justice League in the world of comic books came out first. In the world of movies, the Avengers movie came out first and was an incredibly well written piece of cinematic fluff. Great popcorn movie. Now there are some good ideas and even great Justice League comics during the 60s. But by 1969, I think Marvel got the storytelling down a little bit better than DC did with the Avengers title. But now let's look at the characters. Technically, Marvel has been around about as long as DC. National periodicals, which would become DC, began churning out comics in 1934. But a lot of these were mostly reprinted from comic sections in newspapers. Marvel, which was then called Timely Comics, put out its first title in 1939, around the same time as Superman's first appearance, within a year of it anyway, and both began doing superhero titles. Superman's first appearance was in 1938, and Marvel's first superhero, the Human Torch, appeared in 1939. So, both gave us iconic heroes throughout the 1940s through 1969, right? Marvel gave us Human Torch, Submariner, Captain America in those days, whereas DC gave us Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and they both gave us other characters as well, but of course those are the three biggies for the two companies. So that means both comic book companies gave us iconic heroes throughout the 1940s through 1969, correct? Well, in a word, no. DC's characters got the head start with Superman appearing on radio from 1940 to 1949. Then he had a 17-episode cartoon series from Fleischer Studios, later called Famous Studios, beginning in 1941. Superman and Batman both had successful movie serials, or cliffhangers as they were known, during the 40s and 50s. Then we go on to the classic George Reeves' Adventures of Superman TV series throughout the 1950s, including a feature-length motion picture called Superman and the Mole Man. Then in the 60s, we come to the campy but well-loved Adam West and Burt Ward Batman TV series, Also another major motion picture with the iconic characters, which helped boost the comic book sales until they even surpassed Superman sales, which hadn't happened before, and after the TV show's cancellation, it wouldn't happen again until the 1990s. On Saturday mornings, DC took over the cartoon world with the New Adventures of Superman from 1966 through 1970, The Adventures of Superboy, the Superman Aquaman Hour of Adventure, Aquaman, the Batman Super Hour, and The Adventures of Batman, all coming out between 66 and 1970. So what did Marvel give us between 1940 and 1969? Well, in 1944, Republic Pictures made a so-so serial based on Captain America, which wasn't anywhere near as popular as the serials based on DC characters. The fact is, it wasn't as well made as the DC titles, and instead of a World War II hero named Steve Rogers, we're treated to District Attorney Grant Gardner for a secret identity. Who's Grant Gardner? Private Steve Rogers took the super soldier serum to become Captain America, correct? Well, not in this serial. He's just a crime fighter named Grant Gardner who happens to be a district attorney. No military service at all. And instead of the iconic shield, this Captain America carries a gun. No shield, and he has a gun, which is totally wrong as far as the comic book goes. So he's Captain America in costume only, which didn't bring Cap to icon status at all. It's theorized that this serial was actually going to be another hero, not Captain America, and when they couldn't get the rights to that hero, they went ahead and got the rights to Captain America and brought that character into the Captain America serial instead of doing the research and making it based on the comic book. There was nothing on live television based on Marvel characters until 1979. So we spent most of the 60s and 70s with no live action characters from the Marvel Universe, whereas the DC Universe, as we mentioned, 2 highly successful TV shows. So we had all that going on. Now in animation, didn't Marvel catch up then? Didn't they have as many great cartoon series as DC did through the 60s? Well, Grantrey Lawrence gave us a horribly produced show called The Marvel Superheroes in 1966, with barely any animation at all, mostly just their mouths moving and still pictures from the comics. They were fun to watch, but not really well made. Hanna-Barbera did put out a respectable Fantastic Four animated series in 1966 that ran for 20 episodes. But the crowning achievement came with Spider-Man, the animated show produced by, believe it or not, Grantrey Lawrence, who gave us the cheesy animated Marvel superhero show. But they were in production with Krantz Films, so I kind of feel that Krantz was pretty much doing the animation on that show. It was co-produced with a Canadian company. It ran for 3 seasons, giving us 52 episodes in all. So up until 1969, the media barely recognized Marvel characters at all, and the best that can be said for the effort happened on Saturday morning television. I have to give the iconic character status in the 60s to the DC characters that appeared in Justice League comics. Marvel had a lot of catching up to do. So now we come to the 1970s. And we'll begin with the Justice League again. From Wikipedia, in need of a new secure headquarters, the Justice League moved into an orbiting satellite headquarters in Justice League of America number 78, February of 1970. The Elongated Man, the Red Tornado, Hawk Girl, Zatanna, and Firestorm joined the team. Wonder Woman also returned during this period. Len Wein wrote issues number 100 through 114, in which he and Dillon reintroduced the 7 Soldiers of Victory in issues number 100 through 102, the Freedom Fighters in issues number 107 to 108, and in the fall of 1972, Wein and writers Jerry Conway and Steve Englehart crafted a metafictional unofficial crossover spanning titles from both Marvel and DC. This happened before the official crossover, which saw Superman and Spider-Man team up to face Lex Luthor and Dr. Octopus. Each comic featured Englehart, Conway, and Wein, as well as Wein's first wife, Glynis, interacting with Marvel or DC characters, beginning in Amazing Adventures number 16 by Englehart with art by Bob Brown and Frank McLaughlin. The story continued in Justice League of America number 103, and it concluded in Thor number 207 by Conway and penciler John Buscema, who would later go on to pencil the second Superman-Spider-Man team-up. And I must say his Superman was very different and unique. It was a great Superman. If you haven't read that comic, I highly recommend it, both Spider-Man and Superman team-ups. As Englehart explained in 2010, it certainly seemed like a radical concept, and we knew that we had to be subtle, and each story had to stand on its own. But we really worked it out. It's really worthwhile to read these stories back to back. It didn't matter to us that one was at DC and two were at Marvel. I think it was just being creative, thinking what would be really cool to do. Justice League of America number 103 also featured the Justice League offering membership to the Phantom Stranger. Len Wein commented on the Phantom Stranger's relationship with JLA in a 2012 interview, stating that the character only sort of joined. He was offered membership, but vanished, as per usual, without actually accepting the offer. Over the years, other writers have just assumed he was a member, but in my world, he never really said yes. Issues number 110 to 116. Of the series that were in the 100-page super spectacular format, Libra, a supervillain created by Wein and Dillon in Justice League of America number 111, would play a leading role in Grant Morrison's Final Crisis storyline in 2008. Writers Cary Bates and Elliot S. Maggin wrote themselves into the 1975 JLA JSA crossover in issues number 123 and 24, with Bates becoming a supervillain. Wonder Woman rejoined the team following a major 2-year story arc, largely written by Martin Pasco. To prove her worthiness to rejoin the JLA, Wonder Woman voluntarily underwent 12 trials analogous to the labors of Hercules, each of which was monitored in secret by a member of the JLA. After the conclusion of the storyline in Wonder Woman number 222, the character's return to the JLA occurred in a 2-part story in Justice League of America number 128 through 129. Steve Englehart would begin writing for the series with issue number 139 and provided another unofficial crossover with Marvel Comics in issue number 142 by reworking his character Mantis into the DC universe as a character named Willow. Englehart left the title with issue number 150. From issue number 139 to 157, the issues were all giant-sized. Writer Jerry Conway had a lengthy association with the title as well. His first JLA story appeared in issue number 125 during December of '75, and he became the series' regular writer with issue number 151 in February of '78. With a few exceptions, Conway would write the team's adventures until issue 255, well into the 80s. Julius Schwartz, who had edited the title since the first issue, left the series with issue number 165. That was April of 1979. The 1979 crossover with the Justice Society in issues number 171 and 172 saw the death of the original Mr. Terrific. Now let's look at the Avengers during the 1970s. From Wikipedia, the team encountered new characters such as Archon in issue number 75 and Red Wolf in issues number 80. The team's adventures increased in scope as the team crossed into an alternate dimension and battled the Squadron Supreme, which was kind of a homage to the Justice League. Marvel's version of the Justice League was the Squadron Supreme, and they fought in the Kree-Skrull War, an epic battle between the alien Kree and Skrull races, and guest starred with the Kree hero Captain Marvel. The Avengers briefly disbanded when Skrulls impersonating Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man used their authority as founders of the team and disbanded it. The true founding Avengers, minus the Wasp, reformed the team in response after complaints from Jarvis. Mantis joined the team along with the reformed Swordsman. The Avengers Defenders Clash storyline crossed over between the two team titles. The Celestial Madonna arc linked Mantis' origins to the very beginnings of the Kree-Skrull conflict in a time-spanning adventure involving Kang the Conqueror and Immortus, who were past and future versions of each other. Mantis was revealed to be the Celestial Madonna, who was destined to give birth to a being that would save the universe. It was revealed that the Vision's body had only been appropriated, not created by Ultron, and that it originally belonged to the 1940s Human Torch. With his origins clear to him, the Vision proposed to the Scarlet Witch. The Celestial Madonna saga ended with their wedding, presided over by Immortus. The Beast and Moondragon joined the team soon after. A 7-part story featured the Squadron Supreme and the Serpent Crown. Other classic storylines included The Bride of Ultron, the Nefaria trilogy, and the Korvac saga, which featured nearly every Avenger who joined the team up to that point. Henry Peter Gyrich became the Avengers liaison to the United States National Security Council. Gyrich was prejudiced against superhumans and acted in a heavy-handed, obstructive manner, and insisted that the Avengers follow government rules and regulations closer or else lose their priority status with the government. Among Gyrich's demands was that the active roster be trimmed down to only 7 members and that the Falcon, an African American, be admitted to the team to comply with affirmative action laws. This last act was resented by Hawkeye, who because of his 7-member limit lost his membership slot to the Falcon. The Falcon in turn was unhappy to be the beneficiary of what he perceived to be tokenism and decided to resign from the team, after which Wonder Man rejoined. The true origins of Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch were revealed in a 3-part story that ran in issues number 185 through 187. After this adventure, the Scarlet Witch took a leave of absence, and Ms. Marvel officially joined the team as her replacement. And that was our look at the Justice League and Avengers in the beginning. In my view, the storytelling in the 60s was a little bit better from Marvel. DC had the one-upmanship in that they came out first. Marvel had to play catch-up. Now, as far as the characters goes, we saw the iconic status of Justice League DC founding members. I gave that to DC. We're going to look at Marvel and DC in the 80s and 90s, and then look at the major motion pictures on a later broadcast. But I'm running out of time for today. Remember to subscribe to the channel. You'll get your chance to vote on which team you prefer, Avengers or Justice League. Also, go to Facebook and like the Comics Let's Talk page, Comics Let's Talk channel on YouTube. Like and subscribe. You'll get your chance to vote. And we'll tally the votes at a later date. I'm going to do a live broadcast, my first live broadcast, to tally the votes. And then in a later broadcast, we'll look at the overall voting. So until next time, this is Kevin Gibbon saying, keep reading those comics.